Hello, welcome to Beyond the Current Situation with me, your host, Lily Sanders. This is a really great episode today. They're all great, but today we're going to take a deep dive into how you as parents can um, can really take a very active role in protecting your child. And one of the things that I do as an expert is relationship health, as that relates to everything, including and not just with your child, but with your relationship with your partner, your whether it's parenting with your children, co-parenting with your ex-partners, and so on. And there's been a lot of discussion around children and the environment that they're faced with today, because we see the environment that's going on around the globe. And my focus and is always on the love that's around the globe, but we would be remiss to not speak to also the violence and the abuse that goes on, right? And so for those of you that are in tuned with Beyond the Current Situation and listening to the previous episodes, not all of them are traumatic stories. Many of them are episodes that teach you very specifics on health and wellness and nutrition and so on. And so, although today my amazing guest has a story of her own, and who doesn't have a story, right? She really, I'm having her come on. She will highlight her story and take us into a deep dive so that you as parents can protect your child and take a very specific active role in that. And she's going to give us the steps that help your child in preventing sex abuse. And it's interesting because this is a subject that a lot of us look the other way, and many of us feel that it's never going to happen to you. And I'm not here to bring you fear to that subject, but just awareness, right? It could be the person next door. It could be a person next door that your child is up against. So it's really important to be aware and to actually teach your children how to prevent, and actually teach your children that some things do happen that are adverse. And we're going to go into all of this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our guest. She Patricia Cordona. She's from Mallorca, Spain, and today she resides in the Netherlands. Now, she is not only a survivor of child sex abuse, she talks about the difference between intra and extra familial abuse, which this is not my expertise. It's her expertise. So she can go ahead and explain the differences between that. I have a pretty good hunch what that is. But I'm going to let her come on and explain that. And she's also an activist. She is also actually involved in teaching. She has a program that teaches a specific skill set in how to prevent, how parents can teach their children in preventing child sex abuse within the home and outside the home, right? Within the family and outside the family, which I'm thinking has to do with the intra and the extra. And I believe she names that labor. We're going to explain what that acronym is for later on. Listening appropriate, boundaries opening up, and recognize it. I like to look at this as really 5 steps, critical steps that you can listen to. Even if you're not a parent, you guys listen up. One day you may be a parent, or you may be a neighbor of a child that lives next door, right? Or you may be best friends with someone who's a parent. This is something for everyone to be aware of. And I'm sure that my guest, who I'm going to bring on, will completely agree with that. And I'm going to bring her on now. So without further ado, welcome, Patricia. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Lily. It's great to be here with you. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Of course. So give us a backdrop. I know that you had experienced sex abuse as a child. You and I had a conversation, just a personal conversation together. And it really, I really felt it in my heart. I felt so bad. It was something that I've never experienced. So I couldn't even begin to imagine. But tell us, give us like the points of like the first time with your mom's friend, and then the second time, which was someone else. So we could also see the differences and understand that also it doesn't only maybe just happen once, but it can happen multiple times, as traumatic as that sounds. So give us a little bit of background about your experience with child sex abuse.
Thank you, Lily. So first, trigger warning for everybody. I won't go into any details, but so you know, the topic we're talking about, it can be triggering. If so, please pause and take some deep breaths, have a cup of tea, go for a walk, do something, because I know that at least 1 out of 5 people are survivors of child sexual abuse. And if you might be one of them. I hope you're not, but you might be one of them. And if you are, my heart goes to you. Yes. So I was, the first time I realized I was sexually abused, I was about 13 years old. And this was a friend of my mother. She was a woman that she was drunk, and then she abused me physically. Like, she touched me, she kissed me, and then I could kind of escape, right? But I was in her house, and it was really late at night. And what I did is I hid myself between the sofa and the wall in the living room. So I curled under, between the sofa and the wall. And then she could not find me. She was drunk and she fell asleep, right? She really didn't care. And next day, the cleaning lady found me, and she thought, what is this little girl sleeping on the floor? And I didn't tell her anything. She gave me some milk and I think some bread or madeleines. And then I went home and I told my mom. And my mom get like really upset, as you can imagine, right? But this friend was also very good friends with my mom, and my mom also trusted her. So I'm going to tell her next, but see, it was not right away. It took like a couple of days until they met. And then this woman convinced my mother that it was just a mistake, that she confused me with her boyfriend because she was drunk and it was really not that bad. And for my mom, it was easier to believe her version than my version. Because if she believes her version, it would be much more difficult for her to deal with it because something had to be done, right? And she kind of told me, like, you don't have to give it any, it's not so important. Like, just don't bother with this. And it was, and then my feelings, everything was dismissed. And I had to keep seeing this woman because they were friends, although she didn't abuse me anymore. Just the fact that I would see her and hear about her, and she was wearing a perfume like Poisson from Christian Dior, and at that time it was very popular. And every time I would smell that perfume, I I was going back to the abuse. And years later, she passed away. And for me, it was a big relief when she passed away. When I learned that she had cancer, I was happy. And when she passed away, I was even happier. But it was this terrible feeling all this time. And everybody being sad about her because she was really nice, she was funny, she was helpful. She was a good friend, but she was also an abuser. And people were sad and crying, and inside of my heart, I was cheering because she passed away. And that was one of the abuses. And then I had another one that I could also identify because it was also with physical contact. Not long after the first one. And my mom also asked me to shut up, to not tell anyone, because the responsibility that comes with acknowledging that this happened is really high. And the actions that you need to take are quite demanding. For her, for my mom, and for me, and the context, the society, people are not ready to deal with this. They were not more than 30 years ago, and the truth is the same today. People are not ready to deal with this because they don't have the tools. And there is still a stigma on the child and blame on the parents, because instead of judging the abuser, we tend to judge the victim or the people who fail to protect the victim. This is a reality. It's so sad. And this person, I don't know if he's dead or alive. But this person I didn't see again. In this case, it was a man, and I didn't see this person again, which for me was a big relief. I think my mom did everything was possible for me not to see this guy. And the experience is that you kind of shrink, because I felt ashamed, I felt guilty. And to be honest, and this was really hard for me to recognize, during one of the abuses with the guy, he was really gentle. It was a gentle way of touching. And this gentle way of touching gave me pleasure, which was like really strange. And at the same time, he was giving me attention that I was not getting in other ways. And it was really, I knew it was wrong, but I was paralyzed because he was giving me attention. And in some ways, I was enjoying to have that attention, although I knew it was wrong, but I was just frozen and paralyzed.
How old were you with that gentleman?
14.
I mean, think of the age, 14, so impressionable, puberty, just, oh my goodness, just that, that is like, I'm not the expert in this, but I am very, very in tune to the ages that our hormones and estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, when that all happens on us as humans, and perpetrators are well aware of who they're picking and what and at what age for their specific reasons. Yeah.
They know. And this is something that I talk also to parents about. They know who they are picking.
Yeah.
And for me, I did see him again once. Many years have passed. I think he was I was 14, and maybe he was in his late 30s or 40s, right? He must have been around that age. And about 10 years later or something, I was working in a shop selling mobile phones. And he walked in the shop. I didn't recognize him at first, and he was like picking things, and he also didn't recognize me. But it was only when he sat down in front of my desk, I think we both recognized each other. And it's like, I still feel what I felt in that moment. I feel scared, but at the same time I was safe because I was in a public environment, and then he told me, I am married now and I have children. And I don't know.
Why would he tell you that?
I don't know. I don't know if this was him trying to say that now he's a good person, or him trying to say, don't sue me, or what
Wow.
was it about. So I don't know what I don't know what
Yeah, like
I
you're supposed to protect him. And meanwhile, he took everything away from you feeling protected as a young girl. Wow.
yeah,
The irony of that.
yeah,
What a covert narcissist.
yeah. Well, that's the least you can call
Yes.
a person.
Yeah.
That's the least.
Covert. I started this new term, by the way, and I'm
Mhm,
sorry to side rail, but as you're saying this story, I'm thinking, wow, covert perpetrator fits the name of so many people's stories. When people tell me their stories, I'm like, God, how covert they are, and sneaky. But, just to rewind to even your with your mom's friend, right? And when she died, she was seemingly this good person. She was seemingly like everyone liked her, right?
yeah.
And yet she was covertly a perpetrator, a sexual abuse perpetrator,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
and how loyal and good of a friend was she really with your mom? And it's interesting because one of the reasons why I invited you on here today is so that parents understand when you see what's going on in the environment, even as a bystander in a community where
Mhm.
we would have to be living in a bubble if we weren't aware of the violence that goes on in the community between what you see in the media, what you hear in the media, what you hear from other people in the neighborhood, and etc. Right. But one of the things that I say, even as a relationship health expert, and in my mission and in my website, I talk about all of the time how
Mhm.
mothers, specifically mothers, are the most invested in their children because they have the innate ability to guide and teach and protect their children in a way that no other person, no therapist, no psychiatrist, not even a father. I got to say, a mother has that innate investment as a mother for the most part in a typical, right, mother, right?
Yeah.
And I find it really, really intriguing that you used a word that says it all. You said you felt that your mom thought it was probably easier to believe her than you. And that alone is such a great reason for you to be here to shift that mindset and turn that around and move in a really, really active way. Start telling parents, mothers, and fathers, um, and a lot of mothers and single mothers, right? Um, how to protect your child, not just a girl either, but a boy. And I love that your story is a mixture of child sex abuse from the same sex and child sex abuse from the opposite sex, child sex abuse when you were much younger, and then when you were already into puberty and what that looks like, right? And how you reacted with both. So let's now fast forward with you lived with this for a long time. And if I remember correctly, you didn't break your silence until later on in life during a poetry event, right? What year was that?
That was 2019. I was 41. I don't know. I'm not very good with dates, but I
Yeah.
was.
But
43 or
2019,
44.
yeah, 2019, think about that, right? So 5 years ago, you broke your silence. And
Yeah,
previous to that, you've still been kind of working as an activist. You're an intelligent, you were a telecommunications person, and you've had careers, you've moved around, right? And
yeah,
how did you overcome this? How did you go beyond these past situations to
yeah.
breaking your silence?
So it's a long, it's a long process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So first I just kept my silence, and some people fall into, addictions and like very damaging self-harm and behaviors. I didn't do that. I did have suicidal thoughts, but I didn't know they were suicidal thoughts. I was just like, oh, I just hope a tram or a bus hit me. That was sometimes my feeling, like if I die, nobody will care. I had a lot of these feelings most of my life. Thanks God I don't have them anymore. But it was not until that long, right? And of course, I did drink when I was go out with my friends, but I don't think I stand out from the rest. That's what I think. But I knew that my purpose of drinking was forgetting, having fun and disconnecting from reality, because then I could just, you have the excuse of being someone else when you're drunk. That was in my teenage years, and and then I was always active, doing like things, going out with friends, I don't know, dancing, and then later on like yoga and writing and traveling, doing like keeping myself quite fairly busy. And that's a way also of not dealing with what's going on inside you. And the first time I went to the psychologist, it was because I was sad and stressed at work. Also, there was a very heavy event in my previous job. There was one of my colleagues murdered the other colleague in the office. I knew them both, but I was not in the office when it happened because I was already working somewhere else. So that was very shocking to me. And instead of being like better day after day, I was getting worse. And my boyfriend said, maybe you should go to therapy. And then it was the first time I talked about it. Maybe I was about 36 years old. But we really didn't get into it. Maybe she didn't see me prepared or something. And I started clearing my guilt around it. Then I did a yoga teacher training for 2 years, and every week I was like, it was like life lessons week after week, and that helped me to, and all the meditation, all the practice. I became vegetarian. I didn't drink anything, and to the day I also don't drink. That was in 2013 and 12 and 13.
Congratulations.
Yes,
That's
thank you.
wonderful.
and and it really helped me to gain some courage, and that's when late after the yoga teacher training, it's when I moved to New York. But before that, I did an Ayurveda training of yoga and Ayurveda wellness counselor training, and there I started Ayurvedic therapy,
Mm.
and it really helped me. And I opened up to this therapist because I felt really safe, and we talk a lot about this. And she told me, and I was living in the Netherlands already, and she asked me, do you have good friends? And I said, yes, I have good friends. Like, did you tell them about this? And I said, no. And so you need at least one person that you can share this with. You cannot only share it with me, you have to share it with someone else. And I said, yeah, the one I know is in Mallorca. And she says, no, it has to be somewhere where you live.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So it's a little
Because
more public. Yeah.
yeah, it was not for the public, but it has to be someone in the city where you live, someone you have coffees with, someone has to know you. You
Yeah.
cannot,
Someone who's within your life now.
yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And
Who'd you
I remember
choose?
I chose a friend of mine. She was a good friend. Like we traveled together, we had dinner together. you know.
Hmm.
And I went to her and I was like shaking. I said, maybe this is the moment I lose a friend because I thought I was
Mm,
going to lose her. You know,
that's interesting. You thought coming out and sharing, breaking your silence and sharing that experience of child sex abuse with a very good friend would would c- create a separation from her?
yeah,
Wow. Why?
because I learned that being silent and pretending that everything was all right, I had friends, but I don't know if they really knew me, how I am. And because my self-esteem was below, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
I don't
I
know, I don't know.
yeah,
And
I had someone on a while ago, not too long ago, who had a different story than yours. Of course, we all have a different story.
mm,
And I got the sense from her, um actually I didn't get any sense from her. I just came out and asked her because I was trying to imagine and put myself in her place within the story she was telling me, which was so out of this world.
mhm.
And I asked her if she felt dirty. And so it's interesting now and I don't think anyone had ever asked her that question. So I want to ask you a question, not in the same sense though. Did you feel maybe like ashamed or like used up that maybe your friend wouldn't like you if she learned that about you?
Yeah, I thought that maybe she didn't want to hear it because it was, my mom didn't want to talk about it
Oh, well,
because it,
that's the first problem of why you
yeah,
stayed silent.
any bother. It's something that she didn't want to talk about.
And parents need to hear that are listening to this right now.
Yes.
And it's not about the parent, it's about the one that had the experience.
Yeah. And if your mom in that moment doesn't have the tools, doesn't have the knowledge, and she deals with it in the best way she can in that moment, it's quite re-traumatizing. And you think, if my mom doesn't accept that part of me and doesn't want me to talk about it, is this other person that loves me less than my mother is going to accept me because she doesn't love me as much as my mother, right?
Wow, what an analogy you put together. And that's from your perspective. And
Yeah,
you're being, if you don't mind me saying this, Patricia, you're being very gracious on your mom, because I know as a mother of a 26-year-old, if I learned of this from my son, I don't care who touched him, I would hate to know how I would react to that.
mm,
And
yeah,
it's interesting because how gracious you're being on your mom, because it's taking a very compassionate, empathetic path now. I know that you and I had a long conversation and you have forgiven, and your mom is not in your life today. And you've come to terms with that's just totally fine. And
yeah.
I align with that.
I go back. She's back in my life.
Oh, since we spoke a few weeks ago?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. And look at the smile on your face.
Yes.
Wow. It doesn't get any more organic than beyond the current situation.
Yes.
This
In
is
my
first time news. Oh, wow. I have chills just looking at your smile.
Yeah. I get emotional. It was in my 50th birthday.
I know you just had a 50th birthday. Oh, happy birthday.
Yes.
Did your mom call you?
My mom sent me some messages on WhatsApp. I had blocked her for about more than 5 years. I didn't speak with her. I blocked her from my phone, social media, everything, because she was interfering in my healing process. She was
Yes,
very triggering to me.
that's fair.
and she sent me some messages, and I I've I was in date with Destiny, and I already, I think, sent her an email. And then I was in Business Mastery, and I think I also did something like in relation to that. And then I did the UPW in Birmingham, and then I took another lead in UPW. I unlock her. I
So
I
you
stopped.
did that closing the loop of regrets and unfinished business.
Yes.
Yeah. And she
Uh,
responded back to you.
yeah. So she realized that I unlocked her on the phone, and she sent me some messages, and I didn't respond. And then she took a step back. And then in my on the day of my birthday, I received 3 voice messages from her, and I could hear in her voice that she has aged quite a bit. Now she's 77, and and I felt that something was different.
What?
And I don't know, it felt like she was giving me space instead of trying to get back to her. Like
Hmm.
she was helping me to be happy,
Hmm.
giving me space, which is what I've been begging for. I don't know how many years, because my mom, I told you, she had a drinking problem as well.
Oh,
So
right. That's right. She was drinking with her best friend, the one that abused you.
yeah, so
Hmm.
she's a single mom, had a drinking problem. It was not an easy situation, right?
Hmm.
And I gained the courage and I called her, and we got like really emotional, and I thanked her for the message, and we talked for about an hour, and she told me how proud she was of me and everything. Oh, I get emotional, of course, right now. And and then I told her the kind of work I'm doing now, and I told her I'm it's okay if I cry, right? And I
Of
told her
course.
I'm giving parents the tools you didn't have.
Oh,
I'm giving parents the opportunities you didn't have. And And she told me, but is this hurting, or are you okay doing this kind of work? Because I can imagine it could be quite hard. And I said, no, it's beautiful, Mom. It's really beautiful. We talk about prevention. We're talking about connecting with your children, listen to your children, and building that community. And I told her everything I'm doing, and everything made sense to her. And
how
I also,
beautiful. How
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, and then we decided that there will be no more secrets between us, and there will be respect. And I told her, when she told me no more secrets, and I said, okay, no more secrets, then I wrote a book, Mom.
You should know that now. That's great.
And
Did
she
she
said,
know? Maybe she knew.
no, she didn't know.
Oh, okay.
And she went, "Pfft." I
Yeah,
said,
like
but I
she was
haven't,
worried.
yeah, I
Like,
said, I didn't,
uh-oh.
yeah, she was worried. And I said, I'm telling everything in that book, and she know what everything is, right?
And so there's the mutual respect now, and she respects that you broke your silence and made the cards fall where they fall. It's not about her. It's not even about you. It's about helping other people, other
Mm-hmm.
parents learn how to protect their child. Very much like when I wrote my book, Truth to Triumph. It wasn't look the stories I told were never told, and they were true, raw stories, but they weren't really about me. It wasn't about the stories, wasn't about my, anyone in my family or my ex, or it was literally about being a voice
Mm-hmm.
and a force for good so that people who really either is living in pain because of their experience can look and listen and read my book and say, oh, well, if she could do that, then I could do that, just so that people don't feel alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you're actually bringing the tools. So I'm so excited that we're learning this right here on
Yeah.
Beyond the Current Situation, that you have reunited with your mom, and look how happy and excited you are. But look at how that closed the loop for you.
Yeah, it's the fact that she was so open and to listen to me so carefully, and because the book is actually is between it's basically my story with my mom And in the process, one of my fears was to lose some friends, and I did lose some friends in the process of breaking my silence, right?
Yeah.
This did happen.
I did too. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I did too.
it happens. And
It's
maybe I can
weird.
back.
It's weird
Yeah,
to imagine, but yeah.
it does happen. It does happen. And I told her, but mom, like, our friends know it. Our family knows everything also. And she said, yeah, you're right. And then she said, but Patri, why don't you write a TV show?
Yeah.
And
Write
then we
about something happy. Oh, you mean write like a TV show
write a
instead of a
TV
book?
show about it, like just to make it
Yeah.
even more public.
Yeah.
And then we started laughing, and I haven't done it yet. So the book is written, but I'm adding like new chapters and like good memories with my mom, because I was bashing on her in the book, and I don't think it was fair, because I have many good memories about her, and who I am is thanks to her in a really big part, right? And I want to send the book to her before I publish it, so
Hmm.
no, she knows it.
Hmm.
And
Could you, is it, could you, well, I appreciate that you said that you were bashing her and what you couldn't it be entirely possible that you were still processing that while you were writing the book? Like when I wrote my book, um, it was healing, but I wasn't processing it anymore. I had already come to a couple of like awakenings where, there was no bitterness, there was no nothing. And ironically, Patricia, while I was writing my book, my father died.
oh,
Talk about like writing something like in the moment. And many chapters, I never even edited it. It came just right from spirit. I'm like,
mm,
wow, did I write that? Like, it was weird that I can't remember even putting a thought to what I was writing. It just
mm,
came right from spirit, brain, heart, right onto the page, right onto
mm.
my laptop. And so I honor you for really being aware that that's where you were then, and now you're in a different place. You've
Yeah,
processed it.
yes,
You went through the healing. You did the hardest thing in the world, which is breaking the silence, right? And
mm,
now here you are. Now you're you're not triggered by what you're doing in this program that you teach, but you're inspired. And is it that you also feel fulfilled doing this?
I do feel really fulfilled. I It's a purpose, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the taboo, the silence about it is what it's really killing us, and what is making children unsafe.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So the name of your program, I think, is labor or
Yes,
something, right?
correct. Labor,
And
yeah.
that's the acronym which I mentioned before.
Mhm.
It is a 12-week program,
It's a 12-week
12
program.
week program, but you can go at your own pace. Can you um spell out the acronym like labor? What does the L stand for, the A, the B, the O, the R, just to reiterate what I said in case
Yes.
people didn't hear that?
So the L is about language and listening.
Language and listening.
Yeah, it's so important, the language we use to communicate. The language we use is the language our children are going to use. You cannot say to your child, don't curse, and then if you're cursing all day, right? You need to have that coherence, right, between what you say and how you act and what you do. And you also need to be ready to listen to your child when they are ready to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot you cannot go not listen to your child when they have like little problems, when they are small, and expect that your teenager comes to you to tell you something.
That's so important what you just said. And in my language, stop being so busy and
Yes,
start listening,
it's
and
so
stop being inside yourself and start being a role model.
correct. It's so, so important. Nowadays, life is busy. We have phones, we have, I don't know how many devices. Some people have 2 or 3 jobs, when the most important thing is raising your child and have the connection with your child. If you're not a complicit, like, when you look each other and you understand, you have this secret language, it's going to be really hard that you protect your children, because you need to have that really good connection with we need to have that good connection with them, and it starts by listening. I had a parent.
Wow, that's just now, that's so profound what you just said. If you're not like, as one, think alike, look alike, act alike, just to look with your mom, your child's going to have a problem with some kind of something. They're
Yeah,
not meaning, not that they're going to have a problem, but when they have a problem, they're not going to come to you.
no,
Wow.
they cannot
That makes
hear
so
you.
much sense, not just in my life, but in everybody I know that did not go to their mom with something initially.
Yeah, because if they imagine you spill, milk on the carpet, and then you start yelling at them,
Mm,
what would happen if something like bigger than that? Are they gonna You're gonna yell more? And if
mm,
you yell because you're stressed, you have to pause, recognize what happened, apologize, and if they do something wrong again, don't yell, because then. Mm, oh, I'm saying yelling, but it doesn't need to be yelling. You can
mm-hmm,
be aggressive. There's so many ways of be aggressive and not compassionate. Like, there's a
mm-hmm.
huge thing.
Yeah, like
Uh,
don't be discompassionate about it.
yeah, because then if they do something wrong, because if they are sexually abused, they will think they have done something wrong, because the abusers make you feel guilty and ashamed
Mm-hmm,
and dirty. And if you
mm-hmm,
tell someone, they're gonna think you're a dirty girl, or nobody will believe you because I'm a really nice person. They use these kind of tricks. Um, they won't come to you. Like, if they do something that you think is like an accident, and you are not treating them with compassion and understanding, and you still need to correct them, of course, and help them, then they will come to you with a bigger problem.
mm. This is so interesting. And you could take that down to just the littlest thing, like even as an adult, when I think I was about like, I don't know, maybe 40 years old. And um, I know I got sick with something where I was like sick in bed. And I was like, I want my mom. So clearly I know that like I had that connection with my mom. I was like, I want my mom. I just want my mom to be with me. And
Yes.
I was a mom. I had
Yeah.
like the flu for the first time in my life. I think I was, I don't know, I guess late 40s or something. I was
Really?
like,
Wow.
now my mom was older, so I didn't want my mom near me. But I
Yeah.
also, again, I knew that I could depend on my mom to take care of some other things, like with my business,
Yeah.
while my ex-husband and my son took care of me. But there's always that, like, I want my mom.
Yeah, it's like, mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you feel rescued immediately, right?
Hmm. It's true.
Yeah,
Aw. So that's L. Give us
that's
A.
A, it's what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And there is where I talk about abuse in general. Like, abuse is, there needs to be an asymmetry of power. Someone needs to be older, or another hierarchy, or more knowledge about the matter, being, better with words and convincing. If someone is not above you in any ways, they cannot abuse you, right? This is why in work environments, usually the person who's going to abuse you is your manager, or a colleague that has a higher rank or is more popular also when you're an adult. And if you're in school, it would be also an older kid or the more popular kid. And even if you have
Mm-hmm.
the stage, there needs to be this difference in power.
Yeah, like
And
the stronger one, the more confident one, as
yeah,
opposed to the weaker one or the more cowardice one,
they
right?
have some power over you.
Okay.
Yeah, some in some aspects, right? It doesn't have to be in every aspect, but in some things, someone will have some kind of power over you.
And could it just be age?
Yes, age
Yeah.
definitely. I think I said
Okay.
it, but maybe I didn't. Yeah, but age definitely age. If it's with children, if an 8-year-old can abuse a 4-year-old,
Yeah. Wow.
this kind of things happen because if the 8-year-old has been abused, like a game, right?
Mhm.
Then that 8-year-old boy can abuse another boy or another girl that is smaller because they are just like this game, or if they have been exposed to pornography because they have a phone and they have access to it, and they're like, oh look, the same you play I don't know, Power Rangers, or I don't know if the Power Rangers
Mhm.
are still on. Then you will play what's there, and what's in a porn film is abuse, right? It will be.
Mhm. This is I just, you're not going to believe this, but my mind just went to a memory of when I was like 4 years old. And now I was raised, um my father and mother like very conservative. Like
Mhm.
even I have two brothers and a sister, and even the boys had their bathroom and me and my sister had our bathroom, like very conservative. Everyone had to come fully dressed to the table, very, very extremely respectful, mutually respectful. And in fact, my father was so strict that I remember one of his friends, it was like one of his really dear friends that he worked with, and we socialized with him and his wife, like his friend and his friend's wife and whatnot. We'd go to their house. One day I asked my mom, whatever happened to so and so? I haven't seen him. And I think I'm fast forwarding for a second. And I think I was around, maybe I was around, I don't know, 11, and maybe
Mhm.
my sister was 14. And my mom said, because we were close, my mom and I, my mom said, oh, you're not going to see him anymore. I said, why? She said, because the last time he was here, he made a comment that your daughters are getting so beautiful. And that was the last we'll ever see of him.
Wow.
Wow. Right. So that'll give you a landscape of how strict my father was. And you could believe that there was no way in hell that I was ever going to be sexually abused. So that worked.
That
Right.
worked.
Right. That worked. And when I was 4, Patricia, I just remembered this while you were speaking. We had just moved to New York from Connecticut, and I was the baby of the family, the youngest of, there's 4 children. I was the youngest. And I remember we there was a family at the end of the street where we live, the new street, and I remember their names too. Isn't that weird? That, like,
Yeah.
I'm going back like 57 years ago. And I remember all the kids were hanging out there, and I guess the parents weren't home or they were working or whatever. And they were in like the basement or the garage. I think it was the basement or the
Mhm.
garage, and they were playing doctor, right? And I remember like standing there. I was a very young girl. Now, don't forget what I came from, like the strict father and mother I came from. And I remember like, what are they doing? And I remember A, knowing what was wrong, B, getting a little scared, and C, I booked. I was like, yeah. And I just ran home. I don't remember if I ever told my mother, because no one touched me and I didn't participate and I ran. In fact, I'm curious. I want to ask my mother now, did I ever tell you about that family, those kids? And this is the type of scenario, and correct me if I'm wrong, that could really get your child
Yeah.
into an sexual abusive situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wow.
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And it is common that children have curiosity, and they play doctor.
Mhm.
And
They don't touch you, though. You have plastic toys that you pretend to take their heart.
yeah.
And that's normal, right? But the other stuff, the curiosity, you know.
But they're really curious. I've been studying this, and they're really curious, and they want to see the real thing, right?
Wow.
They want to see it just because they're curious. Children are really curious, and I did play doctor when I was little with other girls and boys that were my age, and I don't recollect any trauma from that because it was really innocent.
Mm-hmm.
If we were looking, and sometimes we were touching, but I really don't have any recollection. When I remember it, is like, oh, we were like so, or believe like it was. I don't have trauma from that.
Mm-hmm.
If it would have been an older boy or girl doing something to me that I didn't want, it would have been traumatic for sure.
This is
And
really important that you're bringing up now too, because in my view as a mother, this is another reason why. Look, this is me, but you're going to speak to this as the expert. You really, really better vet your babysitters. You better really question, why is this older person wanting to hang out with my younger child? Right?
yes, you need to go. You cannot leave just anyone with your children.
Not
You
even your best friend. If you have if you don't have a really close relationship with your child that will come to you for everything, I'm assuming, or
yeah.
if alcohol is involved or substances and what have
If
you.
there's substances involved, it's like a no.
There you go. No substances. That includes alcohol, and alcohol is a
Yeah,
substance.
it's a substance. Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
a reason you cannot. There's a reason you cannot drive when you drink, right?
Yeah. Thank you very much. And so there should be the same reason why you should not be watching a child when you're drinking alcohol,
Mm.
including yourself
So
as a mom.
yes, I fully I fully second that, of course.
There you go. Just putting it out there.
Especially what I am coming from. Yeah,
Yeah.
from
And
that
I
situation.
appreciate that. I just had someone on this podcast, the episode before this, and he's a very young, bright, inspiring young man, younger than you and I. And he lives an alcohol-free life today. And
Mhm.
that brought him to nothing but adversity as well. Look,
Mhm.
nothing good comes out of not being sober. Really nothing.
No,
Yeah. Especially
I
when it comes to parenting and doing the right thing and having your head on straight. So A is for
what's appropriate and what's not. And then
what's
I talk
okay.
about when I talk about abuse with physical contact and without physical contact,
Okay.
because there's a lot of abuse without physical contact. And this is what many people don't realize. I didn't know about it until I was 43 or 44, I think 44. And I read it in a UNICEF report. And I thought, wow, this happened to me too.
Wow.
And those are, your friends, your dad's friends. You say your girls are beautiful, and that's not yet maybe abuse, but it could be a gateway. If for instance your dad would have said, oh yes, they're beautiful, then maybe another day they will comment on your breast, and another day they will comment on your butt, or you will start saying, oh, maybe you're ready to have a boyfriend, or you like boys, and then it starts getting like more intimate. If the parents allow that, is it could happen. But your father was like
Oh,
like
Yeah.
And maybe your dad's friend was just innocent, saying, "Oh, your daughter is beautiful," and didn't mean anything like that. Because I also, when my friends, I recently met, I went to one of my friends' house, and I saw her daughter for the first time, and she's stunning. But I didn't tell anything to her, like, oh, blah blah blah. And then when we were in the kitchen alone, and I said, oh, I didn't want to say this in front of her, but your daughter is stunning, like really beautiful. And then we talk about it, how important it is not to make it everything about the physical appearance and all this stuff. But it was, coming from that place. But I'm more aware now than before, but many people are not, right? And
Yeah,
they would,
that's why we're having this conversation.
yes. So, and it can be, if they comment on more on your body, then it is leaning towards very
Inappropriate.
inappropriate. Yeah. And that could go from making a comment about your body or telling you how to do or perform a sexual act, right? Describing you things that are really entirely not appropriate for a child to know, or treating like if he was, like you're in a bar telling your girlfriend what you did and what you didn't do, or what men like or what women like is not for a child, right? And
Can you also tell me if this rings true or not? I know that this is how I feel, and thankfully how my significant other is the same way, but we don't see that in some other people. I know I don't. I can only speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for him, but in our age bracket, let's say 60, many of our children, they're grown adults and they have significant others, whether they're, boyfriend, girlfriend for a long time, or engaged or married, or just, really courting for a long time. So they're familiar with, the parents. I find it highly inappropriate when a man will send out a comment about the body, like you just said, to like about their child's significant other, even if they're a young adult. I find it highly inappropriate.
it is. I think if we want to be a role model, we have to think how we would like to be treated. I had a really good conversation with a mom. It's like, I say, when my children do something wrong, right? How, or if I do, no, it was if I do something wrong in the office, right? How I would like to be treated by my manager. So, what's the how I want the communication to happen, and
Mutual respect.
this mutual respect, yes. And there's ways, if I see my friend and she's been in the hairdresser and she looks beautiful, I'm gonna tell my friend she's beautiful, right?
Of course.
This is, you do. But when it's people that, when it feels icky, it feels icky.
You just said it. If it doesn't feel right, chances are it wasn't right.
Yes.
If it feels icky, guess what? It's icky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that says it all.
Yeah, you don't have to this is why it's so important to be in connection with your emotions and honor them. And I don't know how you grew up, but in the environment where I grew up, emotions, or they could be all over the place, but I learned to dismiss my emotions because I was asked to shut down, to shut up. So I asked to shut up, and then I shut down, all the connection with my body, my emotions. And then you don't trust your instinct, and then people say, oh, it's not that important. And then when you're disconnected from your emotions and your gut feeling, then it's much way easier that you're abused, because you don't have, that impulse that you have to defend yourself or to say something has been like shut down. And And as I said, it feels icky, it feels inappropriate, uncomfortable. That's inappropriate. Anything that feels uncomfortable, anything that doesn't feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
then is inappropriate.
Mm-hmm. And is that awareness as either a parent that sees that, or even the victim that is experiencing that, is that what brings you to be boundaries, setting those boundaries, saying something, speaking up? And
yes, the boundaries and consent.
mm-hmm.
And
That's the
I
B
didn't,
in labor.
that's the being labor, the boundaries, knowing how to say no. And again, if you're a parent who's a people pleaser and you say, oh, we have to go again to see whatever, your brother, your sister, the neighbor, the uncles, to the job, whatever, and you don't want to, but you still go and go with your children, and you are putting, let's say, what this politeness and a mask that is not truly who you are. This is what your children are going to learn. So when they're invited to
Wow.
do something, they will do that something because this is what they're learning at home. Doesn't matter how much you tell them. Say no. You have to, they have to respect your boundaries. They have to ask for consent. But what they see at home is that you're a people pleaser and you're saying yes to everybody, and they will learn that from you.
Wow. So again, back to that being a role model, if you're a people pleaser and a yes man or woman, so will your child be. So when they're confronted with an adverse, abusive, sexually abusive situation, chances are they're going to be a people pleaser and they're going to say yes, or they're going to freeze, or they're going to do anything except, tell someone or run the other way.
Yeah. And this is
Wow. Wow.
so we think that abusers target children,
Mhm.
but they target parents.
I know that for sure. Um, did you listen to my episode with John Michael Lander?
No, I didn't. I'm
Oh
gonna write
my God.
down.
You have got to tune into that. For you listeners, if you haven't listened to the episode with John Michael Lander was, his parents were groomed. His mother was groomed by professionals, a group of professionals,
No.
literally a group of professionals that worked as perpetrators as a team, if you can even imagine. The kid was groomed at a very young age, also puberty. He was a swimmer, so on and so forth. I'm not going to tell the story. I'm going to invite all of you to go and look up
Listen to
that
it.
episode on grooming by professionals. So to your point, Patricia, I'm happy that you've also learned that the grooming often starts, the abuse of children begins with the parent because
Yeah.
they're groomed.
Yeah.
It's funny, now that we're talking about that, isn't it entirely possible that your mother's best friend, your first perpetrator, groomed your mother?
It could be possible. Yes.
Wow. You know, like in her own way.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah.
Because if my mom wouldn't trust her, she would not, because it was one night that we were all out, that I should not be out in that night because they were my mom with her friends, they were drinking.
Right.
And this woman asked me if I wanted to sleep, to go to her house to sleep. And I say
Right.
yes, because I was, I'm curious. I always like seeing new
Yeah.
houses
You think, oh,
and
it'll be fun. You're a
yes,
kid.
yes. And that
Ay,
happened.
ay, ay, ay. Okay. So that's a great point there as far as
Yeah.
boundaries. What other points with boundaries? And
Yeah. For the boundaries, all the books I have from children is that of course you have to tell them to say no, but they have to be able to yell, not only say no, but yell out loud and run.
Hmm.
It's not like, no, no, don't touch me. It's like, no, like
Yes,
really, oh. And then the other one person will be taken aback. But it's something that you have to rehearse playfully at home with your children.
exactly. Yeah.
Because if you don't
There's a
practice
lot
it,
of training on that too for kids, for people, even with rape victims as adults. If you can muster up some kind of voice, you're supposed to scream and yell as loud as you can.
yeah, yeah, that's actually the title of a book. Estela, scream as loud as you can.
That's the title of your book?
No, it's not my book, it's someone else's book.
Oh, really? Okay.
But
Yeah,
that's the
that makes
title.
sense.
That's the title. That's the title.
Okay.
And they are, and you have to teach it like step by step. It's not
Mm-hmm.
only to be abused, but imagine just a kid like annoying you, pulling their hair, or getting your book, or annoying you, and you have to say no, like no, that's like stop, and then yell.
Right.
So and children are getting into all these kind of situations when they play, so they have plenty of opportunities to say no. But if you're coming, this is in the book, if you're combing the hair and then you scratch the ear, I had that problem because I have like ears that are a little bit out,
Mhm.
and then oh ouch, it hurts, and then be able to say no, and the other person has to correct the behavior, and if they don't correct the behavior, you yell and you run and ask for help.
That's great. Wow, this is such great training. Now, opening up.
Oh, is opening up about organizing a network, a support network,
Right. So
because
key.
you cannot be mama bear uh, all the time. You cannot be with your children all the time. So you need to organize a network of people that you trust. So knowing about the language and listening, the body, the what is appropriate, what's not, then also to set boundaries, and about body safety and all this. Once you have all those tools and you have worked with them, you can start opening up. You need to gain trust, and you need to be a brave parent, right? So
Mm.
you need to have that courage to start talking about, like, I'm learning about preventing child sexual abuse, and you need to be able to tell this at school, at church if you go to one church, sports club, or whatever you do.
At
You need
church, school, sports club, all of that, and not just at home. 1000%. And so, moms or dads, listen up. You need to be responsible. This is your calling as a parent and your responsibility.
Yes. The children can never be responsible, it's the adults. So when you open up and you start talking about this, you will recognize people come closer to you, and they are supportive. And some people will say, like, you're just exaggerating, you dramatize. Nowadays everybody calls whatever abuse. In my times there was not so much abuse because the definition was different. And if you start talking about it, if there are groomers around you, most likely they will choose for another family.
Wow. This is so, this is so valuable. It, whoever is listening, please share this episode to everyone you know. So once you have L and A and B, those tools down, you're working those tools as a parent actively, then you're going to go to opening up and organizing a group, a support group that you could trust. And no matter what people say, or how they believe in that, it doesn't matter. But Patricia's saying that the people that are listening in on what you're opening up to, and are privy to your awareness of this, if there's any perpetrators that are lurking around and listening, they're not going to choose your family anymore or your child. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, because they're taking a risk.
Wow,
The
this
risk is
is such
higher.
a great, this is such a great, like, quick tutorial. Like, honestly, every parent and everyone that knows a parent and everyone that dreams of being a mother or a father need to listen to this episode. Wow. Now take us to R.
Yeah. Let me just
Oh,
finish with
finish.
the
Yeah, finish.
let me
Oh,
finish with the O,
sorry.
and then you will find one person you trust in each space,
Okay.
and then your child can go to that person if something is wrong. It doesn't need to be sexual. It can be, can be distress for something else.
So
Like
who goes to that person? Your child, you, or both?
so you will have that conversation with that person. Once you have established who you trust,
Mm-hmm.
once you have established who you trust, and if you have a partner, you have to agree with the partner, and the child also needs to choose which people he or she is trusting.
Mm-hmm.
Then you will have one person you trust in each environment, and you will keep checking in on that, how things are going. And imagine their phone is stolen, for instance. They can go to that person and that person can call you. They can be like a safe person in each environment.
Mm-hmm.
That that would, so everybody has to know that you're doing this.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah,
And there's no,
you have to be like really brave with that.
yeah, that makes you a super mom. It doesn't make you a paranoid mom. It doesn't make you an obnoxious mom. It doesn't make you an over the top, overbearing mom. It makes you a super mom.
Yeah,
It, and there's zero shame in it. In fact, I would put to you that it puts you on a whole new level of parenting. And I appreciate that as someone who actually coaches in co-parenting for divorce situations and parenting.
that's
So
really important,
yeah, it's really important.
because
Brilliant.
the children of divorced parents are easier targets
I
because
know.
they're missing,
Yeah.
you know, they're missing a connection, and they're easier targets.
Mm.
So that's really, really sad.
Yes.
Yeah. And going back to the R, this is the one lesson I don't want them to use.
Oh, why?
Because it's about recognizing the signs
Oh, because that means that they've been
that
targeted. Okay. So
they that
hopefully you never have to get to R, but if you did get to R, bring it on
yeah,
home with that.
yeah. There's like a lot of signs that could mean that, so it doesn't mean like at least like 16 signs that could happen, that the way they are drawing or the way they're dancing or talking. When you see a shift, I mean, it could come from a song that they're listening, or to video that they saw, but maybe they have been posing for someone. And you
Mm.
have to know where these things are coming from. And you need to be really, really calm. And because you work through the other ones, you have worked with your gut feelings, you have identified your emotions, and you have done all this work, then it will be easier to have those conversations. I mean, it's never easy, as a mom, if you see a behavior that, like, oh, this is different from just behaving, or he's behaving in a really different way, or all of a sudden it's like harming animals, or like what's going on. You need to be like really patient
Mm-hmm.
and start asking open-ended questions without guiding. And maybe in the first time you don't get there, and like just keep asking very gentle, and until the child.
Gently asking open-ended questions without guiding or leading.
Correct.
And keep asking gently open-ended questions until you get to where
Yeah,
you need to get to.
yeah,
Discover it.
and
Okay.
yeah, and maybe it's not the first time, maybe it's not the second time, and maybe one day they tell you when you're cooking, you have something in the oven, you're on the phone,
Yeah, your children pick the most inopportune times to
yeah,
start letting their guts out. It's so true.
and you're like, then you need to stop everything you're doing, and listen, go back to lesson number 1.
Okay. Go back to L.
Yeah,
Okay. Some of the signs, you and I had a discussion very briefly. Yes and no briefly. I know that a lot of the things that you teach and you recognize and identify are similar to what I do when I teach how to identify the disguises behind
Mm,
um, domestic violence abuse and also disguises behind perpetrators.
mhm.
And a lot of them align, a lot of them are similar. The, like we talked about ticks. Oh, yeah, nervous ticks, the same thing like when you're also being abused at home, if you're being hit or emotionally abused or mentally abused. Same thing with sexual abuse. So, can you acting out, being more introverted, over like extroverted? Can you go through some of those 16 just in bullet points?
Yeah. So some of them I already mentioned, that you might be like drawing things that are different, playing sex with toys, dancing like extremely sexy, or making poses, or maybe they come to you, I don't know, they lick your ear, harming animals, playing with fire. There's so many things. Well, if they develop eczema in the skin, well, like I developed eczema in my scalp and my vulva,
Mhm.
and it
In your
was,
scalp and your vulva?
yeah, both.
Wow.
And then the eczema in my vulva went away with treatment, but the one in the scalp, I had it for, I think, 30 years. I had it like all my life.
You and I
And
also had that discussion because I developed scalp psoriasis from domestic
yeah,
violence trauma.
yeah. And just a few weeks ago, I talked with a, a woman her name is Carrie, and she has Root Relief, and she treats people with trauma, and like having an eczema in the head
Mhm.
is comes from trauma
Yeah, we had
as
that
well.
discussion. Remember
Yes.
the
So you
day I
you
went to
don't
the
like,
doctor, she said, "Oh, you
yeah,
have scalp psoriasis." Like I was all raw. It was disgusting.
yeah.
And I think it was maybe I was 38, 39 years old. And I said, "Well, what causes that?" And she said, "Trauma. Have you been recently traumatized?" And I was going through a divorce um,
Mm,
with my eh, with my ex-husband, but I was also at the time in a new relationship with someone, but that was traumatizing. But that started from the trauma of both together. It was like a double trauma, one that
mhm.
was physical, one that was emotional. Um, and there's no cure, they say, but I've yet to challenge that. Did the doctor that you spoke with, do they do acupuncture?
No, when it disappeared, when I started healing, it just went away.
Oh, beautiful. So there you go. Beautiful. But clearly trauma affects us physically, you know, in other ways. It'll come out in the skin. And
It will come out.
yeah,
It will come
it's
out.
not just like mental illness thing. You'll get
Comes
various
through the
things,
body. Comes through the body. Muscle
right?
tension, like in the jaws
Yeah.
and the pelvic floor,
Mm.
nightmares, sweats. There's like pains in the knees, in the back. There's
Hmm.
so many things.
So back to those signs on the children.
Hmm.
Um, Do you see physical signs like that yet or no? Those aren't the recognizable sign because that's too soon, but you would see like, okay, you mentioned a bunch of really, really key things that I'd never heard of, like licking the ear or playing sex with the toys. And this is all interesting stuff.
Mm.
Um, what else comes to mind of those 16?
So and these things, it doesn't mean that it happened, right? But it's a reason to be curious and ask those
Yeah,
questions.
that means that's
And for me,
it's a little bit of a yellow light or red light and start
yeah,
asking those questions gently with open-ended questions.
yeah, and really the focus should be in all the other steps in the prevention, and because when it happens, okay, it's too late. You should have been really working out that muscle
Oh, that's
of
such a good
protection.
point. That's why you don't even want to get to R. So really, really exercise L, A, and B, and O until the day you die, as long as you're a mother.
Yeah. You know, like we teach children to cross the street how many times until they can go by themselves? How many times? 1,000, 5,000, one
Yeah.
million?
And then when they start driving, be careful driving. Yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
end.
Don't drink,
Don't drink.
brake, don't go respect the speed limit.
Yes.
Don't smoke while you're driving. If there's smoking, pay attention to
Hmm.
the road. Don't be on the phone. You give all kind of tips all the time because and you will take them to swimming lessons until they can swim and they can go along to the swimming pool. This is exactly the same. It's
It's
an
exactly the
everyday
same.
activity,
It's an
and it's
everyday activity is that kind of teaching. The same way you would teach your child how to cross the street safely is the same every day, how to drive safely, how to protect themselves is the same thing every day that you practice. You're teaching your child how to prevent child sex abuse.
yeah, and it's not necessarily about talking about child sexual abuse, right? Because teaching about boundaries and respect and the intimate body parts and privacy, respect goes in all areas. You have two bathrooms in the house. But if your child is in the bathroom and taking a shower, just don't get in without knocking. Ask, if you
Exactly.
can if you can get in. So they get used to be respected. So when someone does not respect them and they don't take care of they cross the boundaries, they will notice and say, okay, this is not familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Like, I went to if they have a sleepover, they go to sleep to someone else's house. And what's the bathroom policy they have? You might want to know.
Yeah, like my house growing up.
Yeah.
We had the
Um,
boys' bathroom and we had the girls' bathroom. And if there were any boys ever, including cousins and brothers, in our bedroom, forget it. You did not want the wrath of my father. That just was not allowed.
His father was radical.
He
but it
was
worked.
radical. Now,
But it worked.
to a fault, he got violent, but I didn't get raped, I didn't get in trouble, I didn't get pregnant, you know. So to a fault, but yeah, I
Yeah.
was able to get beyond that, right?
Yeah. It's not perfect always, right? But
Right,
I
right.
recently heard someone saying that he didn't allow her daughter to go to have a sleepovers until she was 18. So
Mhm.
your friends can come here, but you won't go to anybody else's house.
I was
And
that mother.
yes,
I did the same thing.
and yeah,
I
and
didn't
they
wait till 18, but some of some of my biggest battles raising my son was everyone sleeping at so and so's house. I says, "Well, you're not. Why? You don't trust me." And I was like, "I do trust you." I said, "But it's not about trusting you, Andrew. I don't know. I don't know these parents, not really. I don't know their nanny. I don't know, the answer is no, you know?"
yeah, it
Yeah,
must have been really, really hard.
it was. And it was like, I hate you. Everyone else does it. I know he doesn't hate me. And you know what? Chances are today, he's 26, looking back,
He's
I
gonna
think
do
he
it.
sees I did the right thing. He sees I did the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the moment is really hard. It's really hard because you're fighting that. And this man was said when her daughter was 18, she said, "What do you want for your birthday?" And she said, "I want to go and sleep to someone else's house." And I said, "Okay, you're 18, you can do it now." And there she went. And a few hours later, she called her dad and she was crying and said, "What happened, honey?" And she said, "Dad, you were so right. I told my friends why you didn't allow me to go and have sleepovers, because you were afraid of someone sexually abusing me. And I think he was with 4 or 5 girls, and all of them, one by one, said that they were abused during sleepovers.
You see? Wow.
So
Everyone
it is,
listening to this podcast, you must share this podcast. I know I sound like a broken record. You must share this podcast with every single person that you know that is a parent, is planning to become a parent, is living next door to a parent, is friends with a parent. Share, share, share the wisdom in this episode. Wow.
thanks, Lily. And either you know the person really well, either you know the family very well, you really trust them, you know who's going to be there, and that they can call you anytime, they can come back to you, and you build this trust relationship. Then I wouldn't. Now I wouldn't do it. When I was little, I was lucky because I did a lot of sleepovers and nothing happened to me except for that one. No, it's not true. It
Yeah,
happened to
see, you see, you just caught yourself. You were lucky, except it only takes that one.
Yeah, it only takes that one.
And that was the one that was the
Mm,
disguise that your mother would never have
yeah,
suspected anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the only time I went to sleep to a house with an adult. The other ones I went with the children and adults, of course,
Mhm.
that that were parents. But I know more, you know, that
Mhm.
the older cousin comes or someone shows up in the house or the neighbor.
Mhm.
So it's not safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And it's safe to suggest though, like to do what you were saying that father did, and which is what I did. Then open your home. If you're feeling comfortable and safe, then tell your child, like, look, they could sleep here. I had I my I had one child, one boy, and my house was growing up was always full of boys sleeping over, and like, a half a dozen sneakers that were larger than even my shoes, like at the front door. And,
any sneakers?
they it's so, yeah, right. They're stinky sneakers. And my son knew the rules. He's like, oh, my mom checks backpacks, like Andrew, my son knew the rules and he respected them. And they would all sleep over. I have some of the funnest memories and photo of like walking out of my bedroom and like, four boys all like laying all over the living room furniture asleep from like staying up late the night before. And, it's all good fun. So, yeah. So if that helps you, gain a little bit more, relationship with your child by just suggesting let them sleep here. And
Yeah,
conversely, if that's something your child doesn't want to do at all, that's a little bit of a question too. Like, well, what are you up to that you can't be home here with your friends? That
yeah,
was always my take on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a good one. And something else I wanted to say, Lily, is that because doing these things are not so easy, right? To do it by yourself. This is why in the program I have sessions where we do Q&As just to answer questions, of course, to solve situations, and we do role play to rehearse the conversations, because how you gonna do it? And in the same way that you rehearse to have an interview, an important conversation, if any, these are really important conversations that you need to have with your own parents, with neighbors, with family members, with people at church, or you need to rehearse, and you can rehearse. It's good that you rehearse with yourself, with your partner, if you have one, and then in the community, in the group, so you get used to hearing yourself saying those words, and it comes out much more at ease, and you feel more confident because you know what you want.
That's a
And
great, great, great way to look to practice it. Role play until it really feels comfortable and you feel confident when you
yeah,
are God forbid, up against that situation. But again, going back to never having to hopefully face R and really working every day as your daily moment to moment practice as a parent, LABNO.
Yeah, but within the LABNO, you also need to practice conversation.
And role play with that, of course. Role play how to listen, role play what your language is like. Look at, are you being a good role model and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of like looking and changing and shifting the way
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
It's really, I tell you, my mom said, "Is this hurting you?" Like, not at all. This is so beautiful job.
Mm.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah, I really
And,
honor you for
and
this.
and like,
Wow.
you are you need to be brave as a parent. Like what you did, like you're not going to sleep to anybody's house. It
Right.
takes, and you have to be like one
I'm
day
like,
after.
oh, my dead body. I was like, no, you're not. Yeah.
Yeah, but
And I
that's
was
the thing.
unpopular. I was unpopular for a day. He got over it.
Yeah, and you
You
get
know, maybe it
unpopular.
was a couple of days. Great.
You're
I
not a
was
cool
the only
mom.
one that wasn't there. I'm like, all right, and I didn't
Yeah,
apologize for it either.
no, no, and and now he will be thankful to you.
Yeah.
This is what
Yeah.
I say. You will go through difficult situations because maybe you make a scene like your father did. Like maybe he didn't
Right.
make a scene, but like you don't talk to me, you don't talk to my daughters like that, so
Yeah.
you're out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and that is not usual, but you
Mm-hmm.
will be an example,
Mm-hmm.
and you choose what conversations and what scenes you want to have in your life, either these ones, or maybe you have to face something else in the future. I wouldn't risk it, so I will be the
Yes. Yeah.
the uncool mom.
Yeah, exactly. The uncool mom. You don't have to be the popular cool mom because um I actually think that that's risky. That's risky business. That's
Mm,
risky parenting,
mm.
right? Oh, I want to ask a question if I may. Do you feel that with everything that you were just now teaching us, is it entirely possible that can also prevent your daughter or son from being raped? Learning
Uh,
those same skills?
oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I was feeling. I'm like,
Yeah.
if people really were taught these skills as a child, chances are they're going to already be aware, have those antennas up for any kind of abuse and for rape. They may not even be putting themselves in a vulnerable situation. I'm not talking about, the one that all of a sudden gets boom,
Yeah. Yes.
lured out somewhere in the middle of a field. I get that.
Mm.
But even having said that, there's something, and again, we're going back to my violent father, but there was the very things that I did appreciate. We're going back to my dad. He used to say, nothing, nothing good ever happens after dark. Not after midnight, Patricia. He said after dark, right?
6
So
p.m.
he was so strict. But
Yeah.
think about that.
Mm.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Do, have you ever seen anyone get raped in broad daylight in public? No.
I haven't, but there was a case at actually New York.
Oh my goodness. In my New York,
In your New York,
in 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 daytime out in public. I
it was
mean,
in daytime, and after that happened, there was a new what is called this like now I want to say it so quickly that I don't come to it. It was a woman who was raped in and there was at least 15 people saw it, or
oh, like a
16.
gang rape. A gang rape.
No,
Yeah.
no, there was one person
Oh, 15
raping
bystanders stood by and
bystander.
watched it happen.
And this is what, and since then, it was the bystander effect. It was
Yeah,
the new thing. That the more people around you when you are being beaten up or in any way or raped, the less probability there is that you are helped.
Yeah. And you know what? That just disgusts me. And I'm happy that you brought that up. Much like gang raping, if someone's raped, like in a bar, I mean, what bystanders are going to go, oh, let's break it up? Like, the probabilities of people actually breaking it up are very few and far in between, sadly. I would
Yeah.
like to trust that with enough people, activists like yourself, and even me, with the prevention of with trying to bring back community peace, right? I would trust that we can connect with enough people to make a cultural shift around the globe.
That's the mission.
Yeah.
We need that. We need that. We need that cultural change, because otherwise this will continue.
Mm.
And one thing that,
And thank you, by the way, for really reminding me that, yeah, people do get raped in broad daylight with bystanders watching. Wow.
standard watching, and
Wow.
then unfortunately, the victims in that moment have to be taught. It's like almost impossible, right? And I think in that moment, but you have to be trained to point at someone and say, "You, the one with the baseball cap, help me now."
Oh, so you instruct a bystander to help you. It's almost like me telling people as a spiritual coach, you look, success isn't knocking at your door. You can't just wait for the universe to boom, bring you what you want. You need to instruct the universe on what you need now. So the same thing with this, you need to point at a bystander in recognition, identify them out loud, and instruct them to be the person to help you.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God. I have to say it again. You guys have to share this episode. This is, I'm speechless. This is by far the most insightful and critical episode I have ever done on my history of Beyond the Current Situation. I'm in the 6th season, and this is the 2nd episode of the 6th season, which is about 32 episodes in. This is by far the most critical episode that everyone needs to listen to.
Oh, wow, Lily.
Yeah, now I'm serious.
I do hope it helps people, and they encourage them to read more about it, to follow trainings, and to be courageous.
Yeah.
To be courageous and take those steps, those really bold steps to protect children. It won't come easy, but you have to do it. It's your choice.
It's your choice. It's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility.
Oh
Yes,
my
but
God. You better take that and forget. And you know what? Lately, Patricia, I'm starting to lean against the word choice, because I feel like part of the downfall or the demise or the destruction of society lately is in the
I get it.
The too many options and choices out there, and we've become this do as you please society. And instead, lately, what I've been leaning into, as far as my personal language, is decide what it is you plan to do. Decide what kind of parent you are going to be and become more of. Decide how you're going to be a role model for your child. Decide how you're going to act in your role as a parent, in your role as a co-parent, in your role as a neighbor, as a bystander. You better decide how it is you want to show up for life. I know I get very deep, but I really am I
No,
am
no, no.
deep.
You're absolutely right, Lily. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah. And that's why this is so critical, because uh I'm so happy. I'm so happy that I followed my heart. When we had this conversation, you and me, we didn't even talk about all of this. You told me your story, and I followed my heart in trusting your program and saying, okay, my heart is telling me, sure, I can have you on as another story. Now that your story isn't really unique and traumatizing and can help other people, but I've had many stories on. But let's start really teaching. Let's start really bringing these powerful tools that nobody is talking about. They're
Yeah.
pointing, oh, you know, you can go on newyorkstate.gov, you can go on this, you can go on that. No, you can't. I've been trying to get my foot in the door with the police department in New York, starting with one little county, which is not a little county, but my
No.
point is no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to teach it. Everybody just wants to say there's programs out there. And by
Yeah.
God, what are you supposed to do? Google some kind of PDF? I'm so sick and tired of people blaming other people for the garbage that's going on in the world and not taking responsibility, which is why I say that on my website. Like, mothers are the most invested, that really have that innate ability and can take that opportunity to practice day in and day out how to guide your children and how to teach them how to prevent, more importantly, how to really ensure that they have safety.
Yes. It's so, so, so important. You are like you're the lighthouse, you're the safe space, you're everything. If you have that connection, you really have so much. And some people think they have that connection, but they need to go. You can always go a deeper level. You can
Always. You
go
don't need a
always.
master's in it. You don't need to spend $1 million taking these courses, thousands of dollars taking these courses. In fact, you need to be right here listening to this and taking notes, rewind, take more notes,
Because if they
rewind.
do this from today, they will be already way, way, way safer. But they have to start today.
They have to start today. And I'm going to put in the show notes more information on this that Patricia has shared with me. I have links. I'm going to put that in the show notes as well. And also, you can at any time contact me. What I would really encourage listeners to do is avail yourself to reaching out on this podcast. I have put in the ability, you would understand this, Patricia, because you're a telecommunications person and an IT person. People will have the ability on this podcast to leave voice messages that will come to me, and to also leave any other messages that will come to me and to you. So we'll be able to actually help other people and answer any questions, and if someone wants to further contact you and work with you as well.
Excellent, excellent, Lily. And this week I got also really excellent news. There's a Spanish university who's going to endorse my 12-week program.
Oh,
It's going to
amazing.
be backed up by a university. So that also gives, another layer, like, this is not just a survivor that has put this together, which is already good enough. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
it's with everything that I have studied and everything I have went through and all the cases that I hit every day. Because
Mm-hmm.
you say I am the woman in it right now. You say
Right. I said
you
this
really
and I
say so
said this,
much.
it's so
I've,
funny. I said
I've
this
been
to
that.
someone. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you said that to me. You said that to
Yes,
me.
you're the woman in it. And I
Yes.
had learned this from an author, Viktor Frankl,
Yeah.
who was a author. He was a Jewish man. He was a Holocaust survivor, and he was a psychiatrist prior to being in the concentration camp as a prisoner.
Mhm.
And one thing that I got from his book, the book was very, it, it, it really, it was a lot of triggering for me. So I couldn't I couldn't read past a couple of chapters, but what I did get from it was that only the inside man knows. And so when you and I had this conversation together, just as two gals having a conversation, I had mentioned to you, what makes you above and beyond all of your research and data and your intelligence and schooling and degrees, because you lived it, it makes you such an expert in it. Only the inside man knows. Because Viktor Frankl, he was inside the concentration camp. Only the inside man knows. Because of what I went through, only the inside man knows. So yeah, so I honor you for being on the inside, because now you get to really help every parent in the world, literally, save their children.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Lily.
Yeah.
I'm really, and when you say that, like when I read a document or especially articles in newspapers about abuse, I know if the person who's writing it has enough knowledge and sensibility and responsibility enough not to re-victimize in any way, because a little shift in the way you respond to your child can re-traumatize your child. And I know what to say and what not to say. There was a mom this morning that she told me, my son knows that if someone does something to him, I'll kill that person and I don't care if I go to jail, right?
Oh boy.
Because you sometimes you get that passionate, right?
Of course.
And
but you don't have to verbalize it. It's hard for some of us, right? Because that's that humanness in us that is like, oh, kill him.
But I say, yeah, you can say that, but if something happens to your child, maybe he or she doesn't tell you, because you're going to kill that person and then you're going to be in jail, and then your child will be without a mom.
Will be an orphan. Yeah.
Or will be an orphan.
Totally.
So you need to be really careful with what you say.
Exactly. It's almost like you have to be 10 steps ahead and smarter than the impulsive thinking mind that makes you react.
We work on that a lot.
Yeah. So we don't want to work from that. We want to be wise, not smart. Smart is like book smart, intelligent. Who cares if you have a master's? That doesn't really make you street smart. It doesn't make you people smart either. But being cognizant and very present and knowing the, how do I put this? Knowing the adverse potential.
Yeah.
And having the tools to get the harmonious outcome.
Yeah.
That's where the shift is. And that's where your success lies, between where your mind is on that potential adversity, as opposed to where your wisdom and your practice, your daily practice, lies in having harmonious outcomes for yourself and your children.
It's you really, really well put. I can add anything else to that. It's really well.
Thank you. And I really hope that people are really absorbing this and there was so much here. So if you have to go back and, rewind is such an old fashioned word, like it's a tape, but if you have to go back to earlier parts of this episode, please do so back and forth as much as you'd like. This is going to be on, indefinitely. And hopefully even you can download it. Also, if you subscribe, I'm also doing, just for subscribers only, I'm going to be offering very, very special content for subscribers only. So maybe Patricia and I, maybe we can talk and do like a little something for subscribers only where they can go into depth with something like this as well. But we could talk about that. But for now, Patricia, what would you like to tell our audience today? What message in closing or close to closing would you like to give our audience right
The wrap
now?
up. I would take some of your words and say, take responsibility and take responsibility from today. And put yourself in those uncomfortable situations, because those situations are the ones that are going to save your child.
That's
Use the right
beautiful.
language,
Yeah.
listen, teach them, and you start recognizing what's appropriate and what's not. Because after that episode, after listening to this, you'll start recognizing, oh, this is like, oh, my gut feeling, this is not right. This is not right. I'm going to say it. And maybe the first time you say it doesn't come in the right way. Do it again and
Right.
again and again.
And they can always
And
reach out to you or I, like on this episode, to get some help
yes,
with how to communicate. Oh, this didn't go right. What should I do next? Or how can I communicate it better?
of course. And
But again
and
and again and again, it takes practice, right? Just
yeah,
keep
like
doing those
crossing the street
open-ended,
again
curious
and
questions.
again and again, and start noticing, how respectful are you? How much are you listening to your children? How are you setting boundaries for yourself? Are you being are you behaving the way you want your children to behave and respond to someone crossing their boundaries? Start recognizing how you're behaving and shift it. And because that's what's going to save your child, and not only from sexual abuse, but from putting boundaries at work when they ask them to do more work, or if they ask them to take some drugs. You will build confidence in your child, so they won't take drugs. They
Mm,
will say, no, you
yeah,
know,
like boundaries with
I'm
peer
doing this.
pressure
I don't
and
need to be
friends. And
appreciated by this, because I'm appreciated at home, and I'm taking care of at home. And so it's so important that you start looking in and shifting. If whatever you have to shift, maybe many things are already in place already, but I bet you there's things that are not, and you start recognizing them. Take a deep breath and start making changes.
so beautifully said. Act now, today, right this moment after this episode. Take a deep breath and start shifting and making changes like now. That's so amazing. There's one thing that comes to mind that I'm going to wrap a big bow around for you, if I may. You talked about that your opening message was about um, be okay with being uncomfortable, right? Well, what I would put to our listeners is to underscore what Patricia is saying, because she said it will save your child. Better you be uncomfortable in that process and practice with your child than to have to face later on a traumatized child, because there's nothing worse than that
Yeah,
you can't even put a price on the discomfort as a parent.
yeah, no,
Right.
and a much more uncomfortable situation, and the guilt that will come with it has no parallel.
Yeah, no parallel. You can't even, there's zero comparison. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Again, I'm going to put all of Patricia's information on the show notes, and you have brought such your own loving light and such infinite wisdom that we all need to know and start practicing now. I know that I am, even with my adult child, and soon I'll be a grandmother, right? I know that I'm I know that I'm like rushing it, but I know that that's in their plan one day, right? So
Okay.
soon is relative. Yeah, soon is relative. And my significant other his son and wife just had a baby. So so by
Oh,
association, I will be a grandparent, right? So that's a celebratory thing. And
yeah.
so there's so many different times in our lives
Mhm.
that we need to really know this and learn this and practice this every day as a grandmother, as a grandfather, as a parent, right? As a mother. Again, mothers are really so invested in really helping their child and guiding their child. It's a need. So do it now. Start this practice. Make it your mission, make it your purpose, make it your job. Decide to do it now. Thank you so
Yes.
much, for Patricia, for being here.
Thank you, Lily. My pleasure. Thank you so much.